Welcome back to the Accessibility Guys podcast and part 2 of our introductory interview with Brad. What would you say is your biggest accomplishment since you started sharing your story?
Well, I would say the biggest accomplishment for me happened in 2023 when I self-published my book, Fighting Towards Victory. Mm-hmm. This was something I've always wanted to do, but always looked at it as an overwhelming task, which, takes a lot of focus, and it, in the end, it was worth it though, because what I did is I just started writing my book. I did take a few things from my blog, but what I have done is taken it beyond the blog and expanded on the stories, rewritten everything, and put it into the book. And there's even some stories you might not have heard of in the book because, I didn't want to just put my blog in a book. Mm-hmm. So the biggest accomplishment is to take what I've written, add to it, and put it in a book that everybody can read. I've been hearing from mothers, thanking me for writing the book. And, they're just looking for an idea of how Becker muscular dystrophy will affect their child. And also there's been people that have been recently diagnosed, and someone even sent me a message saying, thank you for writing the book. After reading it, you've made me feel a lot better about my diagnosis. So it's a big accomplishment. I'll be honest, I didn't really expect to sell very many, maybe 20 copies, but it's been amazing. I've sold 149 copies. And again, it's not about making money. To me, those 149 copies sold is an opportunity to raise awareness and support people affected by Becker muscular dystrophy, also other forms of muscular dystrophy, because, even though I'm sharing about BMD, it's not something that a lot of our experiences aren't exclusive to us. A lot of people with chronic illnesses and other disabilities will face these same issues. So it just feels great to be able to turn something that I thought was impossible to do into a possibility, like writing a book. I know there's a lot of people who are trying to write books right now, and I just say push through the frustration, because it's not an easy task.
So are most of your books purchased in Canada, or where you're?
Well, surprisingly, a lot of the purchases are in the USA, and up next would be UK, or the UK, and then Canada. And so, even Spain and Germany, which was a real surprise. Even to hear that someone has my book in Italy is amazing. It's just, I hope it's really helping people.
Yeah, it's great to be able to connect with other people who are experiencing some of the same things you're experiencing. That's cool. So now, over the years of blogging, was there ever a blog post that was particularly difficult for you to write?
Well, this is one, and again, not everything I share is related to Becker muscular dystrophy, because, again, Becker muscular dystrophy is just a part of my life. Mm-hmm. So the hardest one that I wrote was when me and my wife were trying to start a family. So what happened was we were expecting our first child, and then, we already had the baby room put together. And, it was about 36 weeks in when my wife was having some pain. So we took her to the hospital. And unfortunately, at that point, we were taken in for an ultrasound. And at that point, they couldn't find a heartbeat. So that totally, rocked our world. It was, so it was hard to write that into a blog post, because, I didn't write it after the first stillbirth that happened, because it actually happened twice. Because when we tried again, it was the same thing. We got to a certain point, and then they couldn't find a heartbeat. And next thing you know, we're going through that process. And then at that point, also, my wife was diagnosed with APS, which is a blood clotting disorder. So it was just a real thing that, threw us off. I haven't shared too much about my wife's diagnosis or anything, because, that's her story to tell. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the most difficult one was just sharing about the stillbirths. And, when you're thinking you're going to become a father, then all of a sudden these things happen. And so it was very hard to write, but I think it's beneficial that I share that part of my story as a husband who's gone through that as well, because usually the focus is on the wife. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that's why I'm glad that people can read my book and also see who've been affected by that same thing, can see that, I understand where they're coming from.
Okay. So just to touch on a bit again about self-publishing, what are some pros and cons that you've experienced in that journey?
Well, the first thing you do when you want to self-publish is you want to look for publishers that are going to help you. And so you'll do your search, you'll go online, and this person will say, fill out this form and we'll send you an information package, which all that information package is a big sales pitch saying, give us $3,000, we'll produce your book, we'll make your book cover, and, we'll sell your book for you. But what usually happens is you pay that $3,000, or you'll get the emails after you first, get that information package. They'll keep throwing numbers at you, trying to sell you. Mm-hmm. And so the thing is, though, you could pay that money and not sell one book. So there's a lot of risk in it. You could spend $3,000 and have 100 books in a box in your basement or somewhere in your house taking up space. Mm-hmm. So that's the frustrating part. And even to submit to some publishers, I was reading through and they were just focused on certain groups. And unfortunately, like usual, people with disabilities seem to not be one of those groups that they would want to self-publish for. So I just did it myself through Amazon, and that's through their Kindle Direct Press, or Direct Publishing, I believe it is, also known as KDP. And all I had to do was finish my story and writing it and upload it to their little system and get it approved, which, it gets approved if you put it in the right format. The only problem I ran into was figuring out how to get the cover to fix. It took me about 4 weeks to figure it out. I couldn't find any help. I was looking online, and it was weird. It was within the same week that I was able to finish my book and actually get the book cover to fit. Mm-hmm. That everything came together. The name of the book, Fighting Towards Victory, and then it was published, and then from there it went. And so the whole thing is if you're trying to get into self-publishing or want to be self-published, you're going to find a lot of temptation with people trying to sell you things, but the best thing is just do it yourself.
Well, when I'm ready to self-publish my book, I know who to come to for help getting it to fit and the cover and all those different things. So that's cool. So as we've come together to do this podcast, accessibility guys, what do you hope our audience will gain from it?
I hope what it does, because a lot of people within our community already know the accessibility needs. Mm-hmm. It's about raising awareness with the people outside of our community. Like, I'll give you one experience. Me and my brother went to a racetrack once, and this is a local racetrack. They have a lot of the professional race cars or race drivers race there. And there was a van that would pick you up. Now it was a big GMC van, and I was like, well, I can't get in there. So, my brother went inside and asked, is there any kind of thing for accessibility? Like maybe even just giving me a ride on a golf cart down to where we needed to go. Mm-hmm. The person he talked to didn't know a thing about their accessibility, about accessibility at all. Mm-hmm. And so when we went outside, there was no option for me. So I had to crawl on my hands and knees pretty much into the van, up onto the seat in the back. My brother had to help push me, and it was a very, it was embarrassing. I mean, I know it shouldn't be embarrassing, but we shouldn't have to be put in situations where, we're made to feel uncomfortable. And then so we made our way, and through the day we went to leave at the end of the day, and I had to do the same thing in the van. And the driver of the van said, "Oh, why didn't you talk to the people? We have an accessibility plan, and we could have helped you." And so the main frustration comes down to a lot of people in businesses and in other areas don't understand accessibility. And maybe that track should have, educated all the workers there, because it would have really changed my experience. I would have had a good experience. So the lack of accessibility in many occasions will make you not want to return to that same function, to go to that theater, go to that racetrack, or, even go to an event. So I want to raise awareness outside of our community as well, so that accessibility is taken seriously every time. Yeah,
there seems to be a lot of a robbing of one's dignity when it comes to having to deal with these things, because you're not being, you're being treated sort of less than, and, what you're asking for, isn't something that's over the top. You just want to be able to enjoy the things that others do. And I think for me, that's the point of this podcast. We want to educate those people who live outside of, the challenges of accessibility, and maybe get them to be a little more aware of what you and others, and me to a lesser extent, have to deal with when it comes to accessibility challenges. So, all right. Well, I thank you, Brad, for answering the questions here. This concludes our first Accessibility Guys podcast. I want to thank my son Caleb for being our engineer and producer, and we look forward to our next podcast coming up. Stay tuned.